Generational poverty. Alternate faces, identical fates, 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 alternate faces, identical fates. Actually, don't applaud that. That's not a poem. That's not even really a thought. This is a thing. It's about insomnia and being racialized by poverty and grieving and all that good stuff. It's called Tricky. The sallow light of my monitor, the recursing anomic monotone of Tricky, pursued through looping, dehumanized contortions somewhere in the late 1990s, can't get no sleep. The angst-ridden thematics of clubland, fairground, cheap car stereo, atavistic remix, Tricky's voice, nocturnal enchantments, both carnal and futile, in paranoid ostinato, can't get no sleep. Nowhere to go, so stagger the marrow-sucked city shuttered shops, the bleak glyphs of corporate exchange, where sleeplessness concentrates sound through the grimy polar vortex via scrubgrass, gutless cutthroat buildings. Inhale, exhale, an irregular breath, your skin caught in the teeth of a ruined zip. Method through alleyways of mute threat, old meat canal path, underpass against the curb, a fox spills out of its own mouth, can't get no sleep. The bloody slang of broken teeth is still twitching, a dull red coat terraformed with mange. Eyes like stencils, eyes like stains, reminds me of you. Chemical river, twist of glass inside a cloudy marble, drab tryst beneath the bridge, a pirate sky and blue black brackish waves, junk, the taste of salt and petrol, the marathon, a face made up for grim sybaritic kabuki, a girl drawn on the glass with a stick of rancid mascara. Take, double take, a shape but not a form, an eye not reflected but entrapped. Insomnia is all surface smeared across a screen. Tricky's voice, the darkened effect of a world measured against shame, can't get no sleep. Our pleasures clandestine and feral. Camden Town at 3 a.m, the mind wrapped and sullen, the body arrhythmic, defensive and slack. A girl on the corner being sullenly pimped to smell. Dog shit on wet crocs, a paper cup held out for change, collects spit, cigarette stubs. We are not nocturnal fetishists, not drawn to the night, but driven to it. Rejects, I go round and around. Something in the zoo is on fire. The cokehead at the bus stop thinks he's Travis Bickle, and on, a long-winded monologue of perpetrator trauma. Tricky's voice slurring like a slow modem, can't get no sleep. In the late 1990s, sirens, and I want to cry, Christ, Himgia sorrow, which is also fuck the police, which is also fuck capitalism, which is also fuck the high alert of lawlessness on nights. I want any oblivion better than this, to consume this circle, Zopiclone respiridum, Pac-Man eating his way to the centre of a private hell, Pac-Man as outpatient, London after midnight and forever. I scuttle about in my brain like a spider under a wine glass, pursue the stupid paradox of my own endangerment, because the bed is not safe, because the warm room stifles me, because inside there is nowhere to run. The night world is flat and vague like a temporary tattoo, empty, dull as a lead apron unless you want what it's selling, and I don't. Return. To the screen, return. Tricky recycles exhaustion into fresh resources, writes arousal into anthem, sheds a skin of cold grease, steps unblinking into morning. As hollow as a drilled tooth, Tricky remakes the world in a warehouse in his wake. Wake being both aftermath and a sudden coming to. Headphones, autistic burnout, skipping songs, Patti Smith and a trite little whine about to whom the night belongs. Fuck you, Patti. The night heightened and magnified, the body discordant, unable to integrate. Insomnia in both the production of white suffering and white defiance, condensed inside the rhythms of capital. This is old and idiotic. Camden Town at 3 a.m. is not a fucking playground. To occupy the night like you belong is a function of privileged shitwits. I fall through these squat Shabin's kebab shops, the night bus a lozenge of orange light, moving as slow as a funeral barge, and the shallow light of the monitor suddenly dead. My own image glitching to me from the late 1990s, can't get no sleep. Insomnia is the present without exit. It is never, not happening now. Life experienced only through its deferral and effects as traces. See what I did there? My research eats my research, my search, my reach. There is but one moment of eerie bliss. A heron wading in Deptford Creek, slender witness, minutely adapted to the mercury light of morning, the single thing that belongs in the zombie world between business and the other thing. Heron does its shimmy, shimmer, little necropastoral boogie, return again to the room, to the chair, to the cursor, blinking in the stale heat of my prole scroll, always bulimic spew. I will never be empty enough for sleep. Tricky, I can't get no sleep. Tricky, not a trick, a trap. Okay, let's try this again. Suppose insomnia was not the absence of sleep, but its scar. A remaindered state, a remnant, remnants, fragments, debris. Suppose lack were the wrong word. Think instead in terms of wound or deformity, a messy psychic excess, a kind of mutilation. What I meant about Laudato Si was this, that capitalism is surrender to rapidity, that oppression is enacted so fast and our waking hours are so distracted and compressed that we are never able to entertain another's suffering, to enter their space, to apprehend the slinky little operations of a machine that grinds us all to mince. Insomnia makes that space as a stepping out, as a moral motor too. And Lucas says, I'm nuts. And she says, I have a bleeding heart as big as a motel waterbed. The brain and its semi-permanent theatre and fester, the festering theatre, which is Middle English for the obscure side of night, gloomy, gloaming. I sing myself through from crepuscule to utmost phylogeny. Back when the night had names, had nouns, when you could divide the night into sectional cuts like a dead cow, the modern night is depthless and phobic. No hours of counsel, hours of contemplation, hours of prayer, reprieve, or pray. We are nocturnally illiterate. Our best idea is a sex crime behind wheelie bins. We do not know how to love the dark, how the dark might be a journey or a costume, how the night might be consumed. 3 hours of sleep, a gold star day in my journal of lesser fatigue, strong coffee, and a student who thinks he's Charles Bukowski. Men. Later, a row of aching pussy hats on the Reclaim the Night march, middle-class women who think in banner headlines, if it doesn't happen here, it doesn't happen. What would it mean to truly reclaim the night? I do not want a sanitary darkness unworthy of the name, but the fulsome return of everything lost, to inhabit the night on its own terms, to unlearn that hateful fear of the dark, which is fear of the other, which is fear as a fetish, which is fear of the self. What does it mean to desire, to truly desire the night for women, a borderless country, a native place for all us queers? My student, his tedious gap year amphetamine binge. The language we have for talking about insomnia is woefully imprecise, clinical tongue clicking that strands us somewhere between a symptom and a cause. Or this Tom Waits bullshit outlaw trope so pungent in cultural memory. The artist, sensitive and extrovert, for whom the usual metabolic laws are suspended, their privilege and their stigmata. But insomnia is also the midnight terror of debt, salarymen in blue nylon shirts, pulling double, triple, quadruple shifts, the apocryphal coda whose heart exploded into her 12th Red Bull. The insomniac as Jana's face is both decadent and ascetic, both a rebel and a stooge. This meeting could have been an email. Then again, your whole life could have been an email. I mean, seriously, why bother? Sleep and its lack are classed, of course, just as they are gendered and racialized. For us, there is no leisure. Sleep isn't a sensuous experience in itself. It is only the absence of activity. We've onslaught and exhaustion, oblivion and recovery. When we sleep, we are vulnerable. I lie on the squeamish bed and watch the walls heave. I hear every sound outside my window. The poor are positioned as lazy. Political discourse frames the lumpenproles as sleeping, dormant, in need of some external spark, but the poor sleep less than the wealthy. We have been awake too long. We've seen too much. The world happens at me through a sheet of soundproof glass. Behind my visor of dull function, I go through the motions. I haven't been paid. I have £0.67. I borrowed money to get into work this morning, and this meeting could have been an email. Fuck you! What keeps you up at night? Okay. Sorry. I'm getting into my feels there. So I'm just going to read the postscript from the book, and then I'm going to fuck off, and you can all listen to some music and chill. I just want to dedicate this to Marty. He's not here. He's not, when you're dead, that's it. But, I like to imagine. Just imagine him into this space. Post-it notes. There we go. All right. For the longest time, I made a bolt hole of my fury, cut a fairy door in fury so I wouldn't have to feel. I stooped inside of fury and I made myself small. But I know now, Crisis and suicidality are perfectly rational responses to a society that doesn't want you to exist. It is sane to desire death in a world that wishes you dead, that tells you this is all you can aspire to. Now, mental health interventions can be life-saving things, but so often treatment centres the root cause of suicidal ideation within the individual, when the root cause is in fact the profound injustice of the culture and the political system in which that individual exists. You were not ill. You were conscious. You couldn't know what you were conscious of because our long, sad history of exploitation and objection is erased inside this culture, yet you knew. Your body throbbed with the wrongness we could not name. If I could rewind time, if I could call you back from the brink, I'd say just this. It wasn't you. It isn't us. There was nothing awry with your perceptions, and you were not a burden. If it seemed so, if I got frustrated and exhausted with you at times, that is only because friendship and community are the band-aids we use to cover the gaping psychic wounds inflicted by institutional, systemic and cultural objection. Even when I was angry with you, I was never really angry with you. I realise now that there is nothing I could have done to fix this, and I realise with equal clarity that there was nothing you could have done to prevent it. That would have required impossible strength of a person already fighting on too many fronts. You had outlived your usefulness to them. They saw no worth in you. The only options for escape or alleviation offered to you served to further the work of annihilation, were both the mechanism of your destruction and their justification for allowing it to happen. I hate this system. It demands impossible things from us because our failure is part of its function. Our failure props it all up. And you built their stupid city, you and others like you, for generations, with talents and skills they could never hope to possess. You used yourself up building their city. Also, they could look down on and discard you. They have their shite meetings in tower blocks they imagine construct and maintain themselves. They tick boxes that destroy you. They live in a fucking dream. They have separated the labourers from the labour, and they have excised the poor from even poverty. That wasn't you, truly. Why are our lives never allowed to be worth anything in and of themselves? I don't know. But if you're told that often enough, what option do you have but to believe it? Where are the other stories? Where are the generous and spirited reflections of ourselves as vital and alive? Where is the future we are allowed to occupy as ourselves, for ourselves, who cannot and will not become like them? All I want to say is that it's not your fault. And I will never stop raging against this fucking meat grinder as long as I live. When I say fuck capitalism, I am telling you I love you. And all caps love you, for the workers, for the poor, for my undocumented tribe. You are not instruments or tools. You deserved and deserve so much better than this, than the built-in obsolescence of the body, than their discourses of criminality and contagion, than the bludgeon of othering. When I say I love you, I know you will all know what I mean. Thank you.